6 months from now, you could be running a 5K, booking that dream trip, or seeing thicker, fuller hair every time you look in the mirror. Through Hers, you can get dermatologist-trusted, clinically proven prescriptions with ingredients that go beyond what over-the-counter products offer. Whether you prefer oral or topical treatments, Hers has you covered. Getting started is simple. Just fill out an intake form online, and a licensed provider will recommend a customized plan just for you. The best part? Everything is 100% online. If prescribed, your treatment ships right to your door. No pharmacy trips, no waiting rooms, and no insurance headaches. Plus, treatments start at just $35 a month. Start your initial free online visit today at forhers.com/talk. That's forhers.com/talk. Compounded products are not FDA approved or verified for safety, effectiveness, or quality. Prescription required. Price varies based on product and subscription plan. See website for full details, restrictions, and important safety information.
This week on Unforgotten.
We have somebody else joining us today.
So who would that be? Yeah.
Dana.
Hello.
And now here we are, 2025, and the number of does that get identified on a daily basis, or the number of even crimes that are getting solved through IGG.
We did a really good interview with Sarah Snyder at ABC 3340 for the Hewlin Hardwick case.
So what did you guys think about Mary Faye's case?
I was talking to Fulmerton, posted Britain's, and then we get a message that spurred a message about Tara's case. So I called.
Everything disappeared, and if you believe if you get on the conspiracy boat, get rid of it or lose it intentionally.
It's one of the hardest things is to just back up and say, okay, I'm not going to be able to solve it this way, or we're not going to ever find that evidence.
Hey everyone, this is Sellers.
And this is Stormy.
And this is Unforgotten,
where each episode will highlight unsolved missing, murdered, and suspicious death cases in Alabama in order to raise awareness and hopefully obtain some answers for victims and their families.
Please remember that any individual referenced in the podcast should be considered innocent until found guilty in a court of law, and any opinions or views expressed in the podcast are solely those of participants. Listener discretion is advised, as some of the content discussed in the podcast may contain violence or graphic descriptions and may not be suitable for all audiences.
And now for Season 2's first episode of Unforgotten Talk. And stick with us through the end credits because we have a surprise blooper reel for you at the end.
We have somebody else joining us today.
Yes. So who would that be? Yeah.
Dana.
Hello.
Yeah.
Hi, Dana.
Hi.
We are so excited.
You want to tell us a little bit about you?
Sure. Yes, I am super excited to be here. Although this obviously has been a long relationship.
Yes.
So we're not new to each other at all. We met at Uncovered, and we worked on some projects together in the past. And I have been really excited about the work that you two have been doing since you started Alabama Cold Case Advocacy. So I am, like I said, excited to be able to join and help. I recently moved to Northern Alabama, and so I am going to try to bring some attention to some cases in my neck of the woods.
I'm super excited about it.
Can you tell? Can we have a party now?
Yeah. Like we need one of those sounds. It's like, whatever the little what are those things you blow at parties?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, the horns. Yeah.
Yeah. The little party whistle things. Yes, because it's what that sounded like. But I'm super pumped up. Also, I posted something about you joining us tonight, and Raul said Dana Pohl is the best. And I'm like, yes, she is.
Yes. I have to throw that right back at him. But I appreciate that.
He's pretty dang good, yeah.
Yeah.
Said I can't think about him without thinking about that episode that we did with him and him talking about those dang ducks. Like every time I see a duck, all I can think about is who cares about the Dogs.
Context is everything, but oh my heavens, that was the funniest thing.
Oh my God, it was so funny. He was like, go solve some murders.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So he's like, he's always such a breath of fresh air in general because he's just got such a good heart.
Oh, he has so much passion. And,
Mhm.
I personally, I love it when he gets so like, he's empathetic, but then he's also, angry about
Mhm.
the way victims are treated and the way the families are treated and the way people don't understand ethics in true crime. And all of that comes together and just comes out in, I mean, I love to listen to him, whether he's angry, whether he's just
I do too.
being empathetic. He just has like this way of saying it that's just so deep down inside of him, that his passion is so true. And I love that about him. So
yeah, we're gonna have to tag Raul in this.
Yeah.
When we post, hey Raul.
I know. Yeah, he's pretty awesome. And then I didn't realize that my internet had cut out again, so I totally interrupted you. Inadvertently.
Well, we didn't hear it.
We didn't.
Well, I had said it, like told that story, and then my internet
Oh, you said the
cut me
whole
out.
thing first. Okay.
Yep.
So you actually got to say that twice, and it was funnier the first time. Is that what you're telling us? No.
Well, I mean, I think I'm hilarious. So,
oh yes, you are. Just for the record, you are.
I was like, that did not sound very encouraging. Actually, that sounded like, yeah, you're really super funny.
But yeah, we're super excited for Dana. Dana. We are so happy you're here.
Yes.
And someday, when we finally get a few grants and we start making, like, not that we want to make money, but that we're able to fund our adventure that we're on right now, I'm going to come out and visit you guys.
Good.
Yes.
Good. Yes.
Yes.
So we are going to the other piece of the puzzle for me. I'm really interested in Doe cases and have been for many years. Done a lot of research, and Mary and I have worked on Benton County Jane Doe together, and so we're hoping to work on some cases, some Doe cases here in Alabama, coming soon. So yes. So I'm excited about that. Yeah.
Because, I think it was at that legislative session that, I think it's the Blount County DA, Pamela Casey, who said something like there's 200 plus unidentifieds.
Is there really?
In Alabama too?
I suppose we could look at the map.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The map,
The map, Raul's map. Yes.
The thing is, though, like, you can't even be sure that that's accurate.
No.
Yeah, I know.
Because
you can't be sure any of these things.
Yeah.
Yeah, because Raul's pulling that information from NamUs, but does NamUs have every single Doe case in their database?
Yeah.
Right. And probably not.
No.
We know they don't have every single missing person, so I highly doubt. And if you look at the entities that have actually put stuff in there, like, you can tell that there are probably some that are missing, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And a lot of them are from Jefferson County, so.
Jefferson County has so many cases, period.
Which, you kind of expect that a little bit because they are the biggest county. But at the same time, there are other counties that have unidentified, that have Doe cases.
Yes.
So, and you've got, I'm not even going to say it. What certification do you have?
You're so funny.
So I recently earned my certification from Ramapo College in investigative genetic genealogy, and IGG for short. And it's incredible. It's an incredible course. It's an incredible team effort when Ramapo identifies an unidentified person or does any of the work that they do. If they're working a crime case, it's a team effort. And it's fascinating, the process. And I think DNA Doe Project also does teamwork. Mostly everybody does this in a team because it requires, a lot of people working together. It's more heads are better than one, and more, more people out there creating the trees and doing all the work that's being done to identify the lead in a case. It's just fascinating. So I'm super excited that I went through the program. I am working independently on an adoption case right now to kind of hone my skills. And I understand fully why these agencies are using teams to solve it, because you can speed the process up so much. For me to have to build all of these trees, it takes a really long time. But when you have 10 people working on it, it gets done so much faster. So it's fascinating. It has changed everything. I mean, since I've started doing research on does in 2005, the number of cases have, that are solved now. Even so, 2005, we were just going and matching missing and unidentified. 2018, all of a sudden, IGG kind of hits the scene. And now here we are, 2025, and the number of does that get identified on a daily basis, or the number of even crimes that are getting solved through IGG, it's absolutely amazing to me. I never thought I'd see this day. Never.
Yeah. You can open up any social media app and just see posts every day on this. It's wonderful. It's awesome.
So is IGG basically, is that what, I mean, I'm not going to say basically because that makes it sound like super simplified, but for people who this is like incredibly outside their wheelhouse like me, I was telling somebody that you had joined, and I think it's one of the agencies, and that you had an IGG certification from Rambo. And because
Oh, wait, I can't wait to hear the response. What was it?
They're like, what is that? I was like, I have no clue. She's going to have to tell you. I was like, I just know that it's something to do with like identifying people or DNA. And so that's way outside my wheelhouse. And I'll have to get her to send me like a very layman's term so I can better explain it. But like, every time I get ready to say it, I'm like, Rambo, that's not it. So I was like, you know what? I'm just not going to try to say it today. We're going to let you do it. So is that what you think of though, whenever people are talking about, they send the DNA off to get the profiles, like the snippets and all of that. And you take those strands and then pull that for match. Is that what IGG is?
Yes. So what we look at, what we look for. So if there's a case and let's just say it's an unidentified person, we look to see what evidence is available. So we talk to law enforcement, we talk about what do you have as evidence? So do you have a bone from the unidentified person? Do you have a blood card that, you may have been able to kind of maintain over all of these years after the autopsy was done, if there was an autopsy done? What do you have that we can analyze, send off to a lab, and have them create a profile for us? So we go through that first. We want to ask like the questions. We want to talk to them about, which piece do you feel has been, maybe you have multiple pieces of evidence, like you have bones, you have a blood card. We talk about which one would be best in this case. And then we find a lab that we think would be able to do the job, and we send it off. And maybe maybe we're confined by the amount of money that you have. Like, what is your budget? So we want to talk about all of those things. we will identify a lab, and then we will talk to the lab about what can you do with this evidence. This is the way it was stored. This is what we have available. Which pieces do you think that should be tested? How old is it? All of that sort of thing. And the lab will say, yeah, we can take that. We'll take this piece of evidence and we'll work from that. So it's every case is different, depending on storage, what's available, all of those sorts of things. And then once the lab gets the sample, they'll go through and do what the lab does. so and they will turn that into, and it varies. So they will go through, but they will create a profile, and it's similar to the profile that we would get when we submit to Ancestry, let's say, and maybe upload it to GEDmatch if we're looking to dive in deeper to our Ancestry. So once that happens, it goes to the genetic genealogist and then the team that gets uploaded into GEDmatch or Family Tree. And then, and it doesn't go to the IG. It's that's really not the way it works. I mean, the police department will get that sample back. They will upload it and they'll say, okay, it's in the database. Now it's time for you to do the work. And so the team of genealogists will then look at that. They'll run reports on it through GEDmatch. They'll be able to see some ancestors in there, people who have opted in to allow police to look at their profiles or use their profiles to help solve cases. And so they will, the genealogist will then start running the reports, building trees, doing all the things. There's a process that happens. And it's kind of like step by step. You do this first, you do this second, you create the trees and you narrow it down to a lead, someone you think could be related to this person. And the way you do that is you're saying, okay, I can tell that these two people share this many centimorgans of DNA. That means that they might be second cousins, or they might be half siblings, or whatever it is that the centimorgans show. And then you can start to understand families by looking at those centimorgans. Now, it's only as good as the DNA that's been added to the GEDmatch database, or, publicly available trees that might be out there where people have shared their family trees. Sometimes you can use those to, kind of figure out where someone might fit in the family. But it's not, it's definitely not a complete picture. We're working really hard to create, to build those relationships and understand who's related to who. And sometimes you're back fourth cousins because you have no other option. And so when you get to fourth cousins, there's a heck of a lot of people. a heck of a lot of people have many, many layers there. And so it takes a really long time to build that. And sometimes it's, you know what, we can't figure it out right now. We don't have enough data. We need to wait for someone to upload their data to GEDmatch or Family Tree DNA. And that will kind of be the key for us to be like, oh, you know what? This connects the dots. So yeah, it's not, when I learned how to do this, I really was amazed at how everything has to fall into place to be able to identify an unidentified person. Yeah. Like there's so much in the process and one piece missing and you're like stuck. So it's fascinating.
And, in the process of making the trees itself, my understanding is that's really, from just what little I've, studied about it, it's almost the hardest part because there are so many variables and there are so many duplicate people, so to say. There's so many people that have very similar family ties or family names or, whatever. That you have to be very, very careful.
Yeah.
Well, that was going to be my next question was,
how much, like, what are the chances that you get somebody that's not even remotely related to your person?
For the most part, you are relying on centimorgans of DNA. You're not just randomly building trees. You are relying on what you can see is shared DNA. So I would say it's really hard to do that. Like, it's really hard to make that mistake, because if you think it's that person, like, there's been multiple cases, I'm sure, but I know of some myself, where you send out, you reach out to somebody and you say, listen, I feel, I'm doing this research, and this is last resort, because we try not to reach out to people until the very end, until, we narrow it down. But if it's a case maybe from years and years and years ago, and you're working with third and fourth cousins, and you have a big gap, and you feel like this person may be the answer, would you mind taking a DNA test? Would you do that? Some people will agree to do that. And so once they, submit that can really clear up any confusion that you may have had. But genetic genealogists are super, super careful about that. And they're not building trees just on guesses. They are literally using DNA to build the trees.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, that sounds like it would be a lot more on point than some of the searches that we do trying to track down people.
Yeah.
I imagine that's incredibly time consuming.
Yes.
Like you were talking about, like working with partners on it would probably make it a little bit easier, because you can kind of like split up.
Yeah.
You work on this or whatever. But I've watched a couple of the videos, and I think, like, what is it, the human genome or whatever that they did, where they mapped out everything. Like, I think that is so cool. But like, that is just so far out of my like understanding that
it's very obscure.
I think it's, and I think that like you doing this is awesome, because that's like a huge puzzle.
Yeah.
That you have to put together. And
someday I'm going to join her. So
yeah. Are you going to go to Rambo?
Well, not to Rambo, probably.
Ramapo. Yeah.
Oh, Adrian. I'm sorry, I know that's the wrong movie, but
yeah. I hope you do, Mary.
Yeah, I really, really want to. I just, got to have the right time to do it. So
yeah.
Did you just say, yo, Adrian?
Yes, you didn't hear me say. I said, I know it's the wrong movie, but still.
Well, no, that's where your mind goes. Like, sometimes they just take a tree branch.
Yep.
Right, actor. We're working on some grant stuff now. Actually, I've been looking at my phone, because every few minutes, Jason's like, I need that code. Where'd it go? Your email. Hey, I need that code that you just got texted. I'm like, oh my God. So he's been looking at ton of grant stuff. So
that's awesome.
So we got everything signed up for whatever all the federal numbers that you have to have. He did all that.
Nice.
Last week or something. So he was looking at one from Walmart earlier.
Really?
I got a thing saying, this is your 2-step verification code from Walmart. And I'm like, who would be trying to log into my Walmart account? And I'm like, which one of these kids, dang it? And then he said, I need that code that you just got. I said, for Walmart? What are you doing? And there's a grant for Walmart. It's not going to be a big one, but it could at least fund a billboard. I'm like, oh, well, thanks. Here you go. And he was like, also, it's someone to your email, because this is, security. And I was like, well, I didn't get it because it sent it to my personal Walmart account. So I'm like, well, appreciate it. I appreciate all the hard work you're doing to help us be able to better manage things.
Yes.
So that's in the works. And then, man, oh my gosh. So last week was like super hectic, because we had the WSFA interview. I logged in, it was on Zoom,
And I think it's going to be kind of like what we're doing right now, except for I couldn't see Jasmine or anything that she was showing. So all I had was her audio. And so I'm already nervous because it's live. And then I can't see anything. And I'm like, you know? And so the whole, like in the beginning, I think that I was a little less confident about it because it threw me off completely. But I logged in and they were like, you've got one interview before you. So you've got a few minutes. And then Jasmine's going to come on, test your mic. And she did come on really quick. And they're like, 30 seconds. And I was like, what? Oh my God. And then it was like, boom. I had no idea when the camera was coming to me or anything. So I was like, watch your face. you look mean when you're not like smiling, or like if you're not attempting to be pleasant, your resting face is awful. So I tried to be better about that. But Jason was like, well, I think you sounded more confident towards the end.
I think that
you were like
always
a little bit
happens.
off in the beginning. He was like, but you sounded really good towards the end.
When you did Crime Door, was it, I can't remember how it was. Wasn't it kind of like that? Like,
no, it was like StreamYard almost. Like you could see Sydney, but you couldn't see necessarily what they were showing, or because I don't know if they did that after the fact, but you could see Sydney while you were talking. It was more like a Zoom style thing. And I think it actually was StreamYard.
Yeah, now that you say that.
Because they, like, the two producers exited. So they came on, talked to me, said, okay, Sydney's going to do this or whatever. So I couldn't remember how it was done. But it was weird at first because when you enter those things, you don't know what you're walking into, you know, or sitting, just like zooming into whatever. So you're just like, okay. And it's hard for me. Like, I think in this environment, it's great because we can see when someone else is talking, but it's really hard. Like Detective Dawes and I would do some interviews whenever I first started interviewing him just on the phone. And I would try to put those into the podcast. And there's so much editing that goes in because I don't know when he's going to stop talking. He doesn't know whenever I'm going to stop talking. You know what I mean? You can't look at each other and get the cues. So it's hard.
Yep. Somebody asked one day, like, how long does it take y'all to do that? And I'm like, a long time.
You don't want to know how long it takes.
I did get a text message from an investigator who said, I wanted to ask you about the podcast. We're thinking about doing one. And how hard is that? And I said, well, look, I'll be honest. In hindsight, what we always say and never do is that we would record several episodes, have them in our pocket to go ahead and release while we're doing other ones. That or do it live. Like if you don't have an aversion to being live, do that because there is no editing involved with that because what you say is what you get. And a lot of times we can't do live because we have things that, you know, can't, especially when we're talking to families, they'll know things and they'll say, well, we don't need to put this in there. And so you can't undo that if you're live.
Yeah. You can kind of treat it like it's live, but it's inevitably you don't. I mean, you know.
We did a really good interview with Sarah Snyder at ABC 3340 Saturday for the Hewlin Hardwick case. And I was really happy because Joel and their mom and a cousin and sister showed up to do the interview. So it was really nice to have so many people there to talk about him. And his cousin had some really good stories. So it was, I enjoyed listening to them.
I'm impressed because we didn't think anybody would go. We thought it was just going to be him, right?
So I woke up, like I said, last week was so busy because I went to the thing I did the interview Wednesday with WSFA. I went to the vigil on Thursday at the Mobile County DA's office. Went to Montgomery. I went to Bruton on Friday. Montgomery right after that. We didn't get in until late. Stayed up talking to the Hollies. We watched the 10 o'clock news so we could see the Pearson story. I woke up at 7 o'clock Saturday and I was like, you know what? I'm not getting up right now. I'm going to go back to sleep for like an hour, maybe hour and a half. Dr. Holly came and knocked on the door and he was like, Miss Carey, Are you all right? It's 11:30. And I was like, oh, I've got to be back in Mobile. I've got an interview at 3. And he said, I know. You said you had an interview. And I thought, I should probably go check on her and make sure she's okay. And I was like, this is what happened. This bed is like a cloud. I sleep so good. So when I logged back in, we went through kind of like the letter that we'd sent to the Attorney General's office and kind of where things are now. And so she said that's coming out May 7th. That'll be good. It went really well. That case is horrible anyway, just because the person of interest has such a long criminal record and is still actively a criminal, allegedly.
Allegedly.
I have to throw in that allegedly. I've been trying to watch since she's been talking to the families to see whenever her stories come out on them, but I haven't seen any of them. So she was going to send me a list so I could go back and look for them and post them on the page. Then we got the parole board records back in Rakeem Samuel. And that's a person of interest that's never been named publicly. So we kept that out of the podcast, even though we'd been given a record that had the last name in it. So we submitted a request to the Alabama Board of Pardons and Paroles for records related to this person of interest. So we get the records in from the Board of Pardon and Paroles, but I'm looking at it, and so part of the reason why we couldn't find a criminal record for this person was because they were in prison. And the parole records say they were released from prison in 2015. They had only been out for just like they got out in January of 2015, and then Rakeem goes missing in April of 2016. And I was so mad when I read that because I thought he'd have been up for parole a couple of times and they denied it every time except for this one. And I mean, he had a pretty lengthy sentence because it was like 25 years for each count, and there were a lot of counts. And so they had denied it all of these times, and then this one time they didn't. And all I could think when I was reading it was, my God, if he had just stayed in, Rakeem would probably still be here.
Yeah.
That is so infuriating. And there's a big thing, or there was a big thing, I'm not really sure where it's at now, I'd have to check with Wanda, but about there not being enough people that were being paroled in the prisons because I guess overcrowding and things like that. And so that was something that Vogel was talking about at the legislative session because they were wanting to actually expand the number of people on the parole board panel making the decision. And I guess it was part of like they thought maybe it would eliminate some bias or potentially release more inmates than what was currently being done. And then they also put this act up in the legislature, and I'm not even sure if it went past or not, where inmates who, if their charges weren't physical in nature, I mean, nobody got injured in it, then they have the ability to go have their case reviewed again by the same agency and stuff to reconsider what their sentence was or whatever. And I'm not sure where that's going to go. But that also pissed me off because I'm like, oh, so we can do a review of that, but not a review of cold case files.
That's
Nice.
what I thought when you said it. Yeah. I was like, wait a minute. Yeah.
Seems off there. I saw when those records came in and I saw that, I was so mad. And I met Erica for the first time at the vigil on Friday, and she is so sweet. Just in general, like we talked about her being strong in the episode, but she is a whole different, force when you meet her in person. And she's actually talking about volunteering with Vocal to help other families, advocate, which I think is a great thing because I think she'd be really good at it.
The same. Yeah, I love talking with her.
Mm-hmm. So she was a little bit disheartened, I think, too, whenever we got the records in. I went ahead and sent them to her. She said, oh, Believe me, I'm going to ask about this.
Mm.
And then we posted those, the Britton Basden and the Tara Sawyer cases. So Tara is from Conecuh County, and Britton is from Fulmerton, which is in Escambia County. And have you guys been seeing the comments?
Really close.
Yeah, they're really close.
I read the thread
about Dino Land.
Yeah. That. Did you see that, Dana?
No.
Oh,
I didn't even know what it was until you. But Carrie, you can go ahead.
I have not done a lot of research on it yet, but apparently it is a place in Conecuh County. It is like a religious group or organization, and they said there's like a ton of people that are moving to this Lennox area to go. And every time something comes, people are like, "Well, have they checked Dino Land?" And I'm like, "Well, this is kind of creepy." So like, I sent the investigator or one of the investigators a message like, "If you guys ever looked at this Dino Land thing, it sounds kind of weird." And he's like, "I've never even heard of that." And which granted, he's not in Conecuh County, so but other people had heard about it, other investigators that I talked to.
You said something, when you said something about it, like, I'm gonna pull that up on Google Maps.
Did you find it? I tried to look it up on Google Maps because I was like, I want to see what this compound looks like.
Dinosaur Adventure Land.
Is that what it's called?
Yeah.
I don't know. I just put in Dino Land.
Yeah, it's right by Tara's the one that's in Conecuh, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's very close to her.
Oh, really? That is it. That is it, because that's the name. That looks like Jurassic Park. At that big gate at the front. Like a YouTube video popped up, the little thumbnail, and I'm like, oh.
I was really hoping that there would be a walk,
Dr. Dino.
Dr. Dino.
That's the website, drdino.com.
Oh my gosh.
That's funny.
Where God gets the glory for his creation. Book a stay.
What?
It's when you click on the website, it says book a stay.
Ooh.
Open for free. We've been open for over 8 years and have welcomed visitors from all 50 states and more than 70 countries without charging them a single penny.
Ooh.
Why?
Walk through the 6 days of creation and explore fossils, taxidermy, aquariums, and the reptile room, all while learning facts through hands-on experiments with a Tesla coil, mirrors, magnets, air, and more.
I wonder why people said that, though. I mean, okay, it's weird, but like, what do they know that we don't know?
So somebody said, Dino Land shows up and people go missing, but yet no answers. And I said, well, what is Dino Land? And one of the comments said, it's basically a cult-ran place by some minister to prove the Bible is all real. And then somebody else tagged somebody and said, it's your time to shine. And I thought, oh my God, any time somebody says that, like, it's about to be crazy. And so we got a response back that said, this place is in Lennox, legit cult activity. Way too many instances to put on here, but a lot of fishy criminal activities taking place, plus people from all over the U.S. just uprooting their lives to come live in Lennox. Okay, yeah, no. And lots of kids over there. I'll let your mind finish the rest of that. And I said, well, alrighty then. I guess we'll just add that to things to research. And she said, just look up Kent Hovind and let the rabbit hole take you as far as you want to go. Missing people, unsolved murders, seriously, Jim Jones stuff. And I'm like, all right.
Oh my gosh. I wonder if Tess has any knowledge of this place based on her experience with the church that she did her podcast on.
He's a convicted tax evader. He has a Wikipedia.
He does?
Yes.
Oh.
I don't know how excited and click on it, but yeah. So he was convicted of 58 felony counts in November of 2006, sentenced to 10 years in prison in January of 2007.
Felony counts of what?
Well, it did say tax evasion first, but I don't know. I'm trying to see what. Oh, wait. Here. Oh, yeah.
Oh,
Well,
goodness
this
me.
is interesting also that his fellow creationists
Mm-hmm.
don't want him.
What?
It
Oh,
says in a rare case of open dissent within the movement over substance of creation science, an article in 2002 stated arguments we think creationists should not use. And there was a point by point with him rebutting. And then it says the AIG wrote that the claims made by Hovind were fraudulent and contained mistakes in facts and logic, which do the creationist cause no good. In particular, they criticized Hovind for persistently using discredited or false arguments as well as fraudulent claims. Yeah. Lots of stuff about unsupported evidence and embarrassing the creations community. Like, wow.
Well, that says a lot when your own group doesn't want you.
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh, it says pled guilty to 58 counts for tax fraud, but it said he had to pay $640,000 in restitution to the IRS and the prosecution's court cost of over $7,000, and then served 3 years on parole once he was released from prison. Well, I mean, I think that the blind ditches liars too, but you know.
Oh, he was also arrested for assault and battery and burglary in Escambia County in 2002. They were charges ended up being dropped, but
Wow. Oh, yep. Arrested on domestic violence charges. Oh, that was not his wife, I guess.
no, it was his secretary, I think.
Yeah, was arrested last Friday on domestic violence after his wife claimed he body slammed her.
Oh. Huh.
He allegedly injured his wife by body slamming her, sending her to the emergency room in late 2020, according to an order of protection she filed against him.
So he's a swell guy.
Yeah.
Oh, it says he wants to shut me up, Lincoln wrote in explaining why she fears the evangelist. He is dependent upon public opinion for his livelihood. I fear he will kill me to shut me up.
Wow.
Wow.
She also claimed he sent his right-hand man to her rental property to threaten her and that he trashed the property the next day. So he was arrested on July 30th on third-degree domestic violence and released from Conecuh County Jail after posting bond. So, man, that could make for an interesting, I mean, it's been an interesting talk now, but like,
yeah,
that could really be a good full episode about the weird things going on in Conecuh County.
It's such a odd, I mean, obviously you're attracting families and children and you know, that's uncomfortable.
Yes.
Yeah. And I think it just seems so odd, you know, like even the description you read at the beginning, Carrie, it's just so strange, you know, with the Tesla coil and then the turtles that were in the pictures and, you know, it's Dino Land or what, like, how does that, I mean, I get it, but like conceptually that's a stretch, you know, like, for me to be like, so. Yeah, let me bring my family here.
Oh my, because well, how many people do you think Google it before they go? They're just like, oh, this looks cool.
Yeah.
Let's go. But I don't even know how you would find that because I've literally never heard about it before these comments. So it's not like it's advertised.
No, it's got to be word of mouth.
Yeah. And so he wrote an open letter to the president. That should be interesting. Wait. Oh, it's not actually a letter. It's a whole video. But it says about the open letter. The video is an investment of nearly 3/4 of an hour of lifespan that you will never get back. So I will give you a bit of a rundown. After Hovid's standard intro, he indicates that he will be sharing an open letter to Trump and all conservative, freedom-loving Americans. He asked people to copy the message and share it widely among those who love the Lord and might be able to step in. After some promotion for Dinosaur Adventureland in Linux and a discussion of some of the fine points in the construction of Noah's Ark, he gets to the main issue. He relates how someone who wrote him praising his creation science work was concerned about Kent being a tax protester. That is what's prompting Hoven to write to Trump about the weaponization of the Justice Department to use the law against political enemies. In Hoven's view, that is what happened to him. And it's talking about that indictment that he got for, not paying taxes.
Mm-hmm.
And it said he praises Trump's executive order ending the weaponization of the federal government. His praise for our president is effusive, but there a further ask. He wants the president to undo the damage done to Hoven starting in 2001 when IRS began investigating him, culminating in his imprisonment in 2006. He believes they investigated him because of his video on the dangers of evolution theory. That one is a 3-hour lifespan investment. I like whoever wrote this for Forbes. Atheists and God haters have run with this tax protester claim against me for 19 years. They cannot win a debate defending their dumb evolution religion against me, and they are jealous of my popularity. So they look for anything to try to make me look bad and divert attention from their own silly belief that they are related to a strawberry and the whole universe came from a dot.
Heavens.
Oh, this person talked to him and asked him whether there was anything that he wanted emphasized in his letter, which covers a good deal of ground. He emphasized 3 things. The first is that his prosecution is an instance of Justice Department weaponization against perceived enemies. The second is his view that he is totally innocent and has paid every tax that he has ever owed. And the third is his complaint against Judge Rogers. In particular, he complains that during sentencing, she said that his crime was worse than rape. He has 8 people who were at the trial who signed affidavits that Judge Rogers said that. It does not appear in the trial transcript, though, which Hoven sees as a serious crime that needs to be investigated. I asked him why other people who advocated for creation science, the notion that there is scientific evidence for a 6,000-year-old Earth in which dinosaurs and humans coexisted, were not prosecuted by the IRS. He speculated that nobody does it as well as he does. That's why they've kicked you out of their group. It happens to all of us, man. Wow. That's going to be something interesting to look at.
And so, what did you guys think about Mary Faye's case?
The interview with Brad Golson was really interesting.
Yeah.
He's done a lot of work.
He has. And we said in the interview, if I didn't cut it off, we could have been there for another 2 hours talking or more. It was just very interesting. And he has done a lot of work, especially considering, that there's no records.
Yeah.
So, he found himself or gleaned from, oh my gosh, I just blanked. Bob. Mm-hmm. Bob. So yeah,
I was really impressed with just like his general knowledge, because sometimes you can talk to people and they've done something or whatever, but really they've just kind of like scratched the surface and there's been minimal like effort behind it. Right. But he has really put in the work. And after hearing him talk about why he wrote the book the way that he did, I like the way that it's based on a true story, essentially. Like they do the documentary movies or whatever, but they'll say, some of this has been fictionalized, but it is based on a true story.
Right. And they kind of fill in some of the blanks because there's some things that you just can't know.
Yeah. Like him talking about, there's no way for us to know what Mary Faye Hunter's conversations were, in private. There was no diary or anything like that. And so I thought that was a really good, idea, or to lead up to it and kind of give you at least a little bit of background on who the people were, without having to just start like kind of in the middle with no background information, and then you just kind of like work it out and hope you get it,
Yeah. I just wanted to second what you said, Carrie, in that he is so well versed, and you can tell he has done a great deal. Like just the way he talks about the case, it's very, it's like a part of him. It has become a part of him. He knows it inside out, And it is amazing that he hasn't had a case filed, but he has been able to talk to people, interview people, get to know who she was through others.
Yeah.
And he really put a lot of time into bringing her to life. And I thought that was, it just was refreshing to hear, because like you said, you don't always have someone who, I mean, some of these people spit out books so fast. I'm just like, I mean, it takes us longer to do a podcast than it feels like it takes them to write a book sometimes. Yeah. So, so anyway, I thought it was, I love that he said he would help us. I think that is awesome. So
I do too. And you were talking about how fast they spit it out. You know, the ones that do give the background information, they rush through it to get to like the catalyst point to tell the everything after. So you really don't get a good feel. And that's something that we've talked about on the podcast so many times, is that the reason we go through the background information, which I'm not sure that we have done it. We have been trying to do it more with the families now that we have so many of them that are participating. Tell us a little bit about like what's your favorite memory and things like that. Because one of the biggest things is that there is this morbid curiosity, which you kind of need in order to have people pulled in and engaged. You need them to be curious. You need them to want to know more. But at the same time, it's easy to get lost in that entertainment factor. And so it turns into just, this is another story that we're telling. And the fact that there is a real person involved who is missing, who is deceased, who no longer here, with a real family that loves them and misses them and just wants answers, that gets lost in the mix. And so you get all these rumor mills going, and sometimes there's a whole lack of concern about what type of information is being spread around. And one of the things that we wanted to make sure that we did when we started this was to focus on the person, because they're the whole reason we're talking about the case that's going on, is because there is a person that has gotten lost into the details of what actually happened to make them disappear or to make them deceased. And I thought that was a really good, because he spent a good amount of time fleshing all of that out.
Yeah.
And it does, when you're reading through it, and it starts with, Mary Faye Hunter's, all the piano lessons and how much she loved the piano. Like, you get this really good feel for who she is as a person.
Yeah.
And to me, it makes what happened to her that much more personal.
And you get her from, all the background on why people would view her the way she appeared. And unfortunately, that's another obstacle that a lot of people have, is that, they judge a book by a cover, where the cover is completely different than the book, it's, I feel bad when we have cases that you can't get that information, because, we want nothing more than all of them to have, life to the people that are seeing it, or reading it, whatever. And if you don't have any information, I mean, we've had a few cases where there's literally like a paragraph on them, and it's hard to find anything out about it, and you can't get an agency to talk to you at all about it. And so basically it's a short blurb, and you kind of have to give as much as you can to it, but you just can't, it doesn't do it justice, I guess.
Yeah. And sometimes there are people that they don't want to talk,
True.
They're,
that too.
It's a sensitive subject, or in some cases they just don't want to talk. That makes it a little bit harder to really capture who the person as a whole was. Like, what was their personality? What were things they like to do? What are things like you want people to relate to them? Because the more they relate, then the more concern they get, the more drive they have to want to know what happened to them. And to talk about that. Hey, have you heard this? Did you know this case was out there, because that's a huge thing about sharing the cases, talking about the cases, not necessarily spreading rumors, because that doesn't really help, but just talking about them in general and keeping them, a constant, then that is what helps drive those new leads and things to come in, because people start to feel like they know them. They start to be concerned about this, or they're, or maybe their neighbor has been being weird about it. And they're like, wait, now that I've heard more about this person, like, I think we probably need to tell somebody about this.
Yeah.
And, it was kind of interesting about, and I'm trying to be careful about what I say, because like part of me wants people to just go read the book. Because
I know.
I don't want to but we have the interview and stuff. So, but I still want to be, because if you haven't listened to the interview, you need to. If you haven't read the book, you should.
Yeah.
But
by the time this comes out, you would have had 2 weeks. So get on it.
Spoiler alert. Talking about the guy that died by suicide.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And the note that just somebody called that in.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. There's so much information that was lost, that maybe was known then. And then, I think too, when a case is as old as this case is, 1987, that's a lot of years. People remaining, or people who have relatives that are remaining that might have been involved in the case, or in the vicinity of the case, as far as like they knew who the people were and that sort of thing. It could be that the main people involved in this are not here anymore, so maybe they're more comfortable talking about it at that point, or whatever. But
well, relationships change.
Yeah, exactly. Even not 40 years ago, but yeah.
Well, that's kind of that whole Lost File and all that type. That Elaine Reed case that NBC just covered, 15 in Mobile. That's like a 46-year case, and I actually learned about this case through one of my son's friend's parents, and they had told me about it. And then it turned out another lady that I met recently, it's a relative of her husband's. And so it just kept coming up, and I'm like, man, this just keeps coming up. And it's kind of one of those things where you feel like, all right, you can hear about it so many times, but eventually you got to do something about it. Yeah. So she had been on our list, and I had asked Mitch about it at one point, but I couldn't find a whole lot of information. And at the time, Pritchard Police Department still was separated. Well, now Mobile County Sheriff's Office is actually handling major crimes for Pritchard. And so I was like, well, maybe now that it's over at the sheriff's office, we're working on the Stephen Pearson's case, maybe, we can talk to them and see what they've got. Well, Sheriff Birch has been kind of in and out, so I haven't had a chance to really sit down and talk to him. But that, one of the things I said was that her file had been lost multiple times. So Chief Lawrence Batiste, that used to be at Mobile at the time, was at Pritchard. And I don't think he was police chief. I don't remember if he was an investigator or what. But he had made a comment about, I found like one article where it said he had found like one piece of paper that indicated an investigation had been done, but that had been about the extent of it. So I'm not even sure there is still a file at this point. I was really happy that her family came down and got the chance to talk to Darwin about it and, kind of bring some light to that, because actually Elaine's car, so she had taken her daughter, she and her daughter had been at the laundromat. She took her daughter to her mother's to stay while she went back and got the clothes, like swapped them over or whatever. And then she didn't come back. And then they found her car. Her car is actually still sitting in her mother's backyard from where they towed it from where it was found to her mother's house.
Wow.
It has never been touched. It is still sitting in the exact same spot.
Really?
And yeah, her mom said, she just always kind of hoped she'd come back to get it, and then they found her remains, but nobody's ever been in it. They've just left it sitting there. And so it's still there. And I'm like, I don't know what you could get out of it now. But maybe something.
Well, I hope they're
but
going
yeah,
over it with a fine tooth.
Yeah, I'm like it is still sitting there in her backyard. And I'm like, that may be the only piece of her file that's still around.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's really sad, actually. And then I saw our email with Decatur Police Department, which is where Brad thought the case was at. And they're like, well, we don't have records of that. So you're going to have to talk to SBI or somebody.
Yeah.
So I guess that's a different route that we'll have to go down.
Yeah. And then, of course, the DA has the autopsy report, or has it available to him. I don't know if he actually physically has it or not, but he won't release that to the family, which is in the book. But
I wonder why.
Well, basically because that's the only thing that they have related to the case. So it kind of makes you feel like there might be something in that would reveal something about the case, but I don't know. Or maybe there's something in it that they just, they don't know if there's something in it, but they'd just, if somebody came forward, that's the only thing that they have.
Yeah. Like possibly they would know.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I guess that makes sense. We've talked about it before. You have to be able to like corroborate things that you get. So there are reasons why certain things can't be made public. Right. I always hate whenever it's a family though that has been waiting for so long and literally there's one thing left and they don't even know what it says.
Yeah. And I just don't, I mean, her remains were mostly bone. So.
And so the guy that he speculates about in the book as being the boss, that is who died by suicide a few months later.
Correct.
Like literally a few months.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Was it a few months after she went missing or a few months after she was found?
A few months after she was, I think it was like 2 months after she was found. I was going to. Yeah, and she was found in January, I think. So
I think he said March, right? March of, yeah.
So yeah, March 30th is when they ruled, which, was amazing to me that they would come back and change what they said that they thought happened with him. But yeah, so March 30th was their deciding what the cause of death was.
So that is fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
The papers did a huge write-up on that case. So
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But the one that had the write-up on what we think actually happened before they changed was huge. I mean, it was like very detailed.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's kind of amazing that they, how do you do that and have it public like that? And then
come back and change it.
Come back and change it, very blatantly change it. And
well, I mean, sometimes that happens today. Unfortunately.
True story.
Yeah.
That's true. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, I would think that they would have just left it as, undetermined or something like that, because that's typically where things fall, undetermined.
Yeah. Yeah. The other thing I thought was interesting was the fact that he said that Bob and several other law enforcement people, I guess police officers, whomever they were, had spent time searching for the evidence. And of course, much like us, we think, well, I'm sure they did a great job, but I want to get down there and look for it myself. Maybe I can find it. And I loved how he said he had that same thought. He went down there. He spent a ton of time. I think he said I don't know. I could be wrong. I thought he said 2 months. But looking, he found nothing, just as the others had not. And that was, it's so interesting because I'm sure all of us can talk about cases that we have just dug and dug and dug. And, the time I spent on Cobb County Jane Doe, and she still lies there, essentially publicly unidentified. And it just is, you think you can do it, you think you can find it. You think that evidence has to be somewhere,
Right.
even in her case, that evidence is lost. And so, I mean, it's just something that you don't want to let go of. It's one of the hardest things is to just back up and say, okay, I'm not going to be able to solve it this way, or we're not going to ever find that evidence, or
Like, this is not going to be here.
Yeah.
That's just how it is. Like, it doesn't matter who looks, how many times they look.
Mhm.
It is
Yeah.
not going to miraculously show up.
Yeah.
Sometimes another agency will have it.
Yeah.
Back then, I think I shouldn't say this definitively, but lines were blurred a bit back then when multiple agencies got involved. So they didn't always track as well where the records were, if they felt like the case was open and shut, or, they thought they knew what happened, so then they left it, type of a thing.
Mhm.
But, given the circumstances where, everything disappeared, and if you believe the
Kind of get on the
theory,
conspiracy boat.
yeah, if you get on the conspiracy boat, maybe they did, get rid of it or lose it intentionally, even if it's still around somewhere,
Well, it makes me think about the Paula Ellis and the Shanda Feller cases out of Tuscaloosa. And, it's the Shanda Feller case, I think. Actually, it's the one that prompted Tuscaloosa to do that Tuscaloosa County Major Crimes Unit, where all of their violent crimes goes to one place, because there were so many different agencies involved. You had the Northport Police Department, the Campus Police Department, the City Police Department, the Sheriff's Office. All of these hands were in it. People weren't necessarily cooperating or communicating, and some people had some things and other people had other things. And this isn't the first time that we've heard this in other cases. But in order to kind of circumvent that happening again, or prevent that from happening again, they created one major unit for the entire county where all of the violent crimes go to.
Mhm.
And that is what they handle. It doesn't matter if it falls within city limits or whose jurisdiction it is. It goes to that specific place. And I think that's awesome.
Yeah.
But I mean, that I can see where that would happen when especially back then, because we talk about it all the time, things weren't electronic.
Mhm.
And so when you have, paper gets lost, it gets torn, it gets wet, pencil wipes off, all of these things. And it was really easy to misplace things, or, whatever. It's highly likely that it's in somebody else's file. When we talked to Olivia about the doe that they identified in Mobile, she said they found her teeth like in a random box or something.
Yeah.
And that's where they got the DNA from.
Yeah. Teeth are, a really good source of DNA. So that was like a gift. You know what I mean? That was like literally probably like, they probably were like, oh my gosh, let's get these things, sent out to a lab.
Well, I think these were like dentures, and they'd not been maintained appropriately, as far as like keeping evidence goes, according to Olivia. I think she talked about it on the podcast, actually, like kind of
now that you say that, I remember
the obstacles that they had, thinking that, is this even going to work? But they still got DNA off the dentures. So, but it was one where, like, I think they were just cleaning out the evidence room one day, and they were like, what's this?
Yeah.
And, there it was. So, things get mislabeled and all of that. But at the same time, sometimes it's just not there. You can know that it was there at one point. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Somebody checked it out. Somebody, who knows? It got moved when they did something with the room,
The one thing that's interesting about that, though, is that the case that you and I worked on, Mary, Benton County Jane Doe, the main case file was lost. And luckily, the state police had a very minor, very thin, almost useless, but helpful as the case is, 40 some years old or 50 some years old, or is it 60 some now? Maybe, I don't know. But we were able to, salvage from that very thin file an autopsy report or a summary of an autopsy report and a little bit of witness information. So a few names and some statements. And so that was beneficial,
Yeah.
And I think that, so I'm not, I think sometimes it works in our favor. But unfortunately she's still unidentified. So a little more would have been greatly helpful, I think.
Yeah, I do too.
Well, again, I would super encourage anybody that has not listened to the interview to go listen to it and to go read the book. If you have Kindle Unlimited, it's actually included in your Kindle Unlimited plan.
Right.
But I think it's something that'll be interesting to look more into, and the other cases that he had.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm actually really interested in, I think it's Joyce Drake.
Yeah.
He's done a lot of work on that and is still working on that. So, it'd be great to collaborate on that.
Yeah, I think so. I also thought it was really cool that he said he'd kind of been watching since we got started, like following since we got started. And I'm like,
I thought that
I
was...
didn't realize that. And he's on our list.
I always like to hear stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, and what he said was he appreciates, the work that is being done, and he finds value in what you do, and he feels like you are very, responsible and respectful in your work, and I love that. Like, that is such a compliment.
It
was
makes
a really
you
great
feel better, like, because there are times where you are like, God, do we put this in there or not? Like, how is it really necessary? Or like, there are times where you second guess it. It's not always, but sometimes you do. And so it's nice to have other people, especially that are kind of in the same kind of industry or whatever, saying like, no, I think this is being really well done. Which, also we got a call from somebody at the Mobile County DA's case about a case that we need to look at, but she was saying, I've been following the page since you guys, for a long time. I think she said for a while. She'd been following it since close to the beginning, if not the beginning. And she said, but I just started listening to the podcast. And one of the first ones that I listened to is the Danny Barter case. And
I know.
She said, I really like what y'all are doing, which is why she called. It makes me proud in general because we have people like in official capacities as far as like agencies or, wherever they're at calling to say, hey, we would like to work with you on this. And I think that is huge because it's something that doesn't happen regularly in Alabama. We talk about it all the time. We hit more obstacles or closed doors, at least in the beginning. And it seems like it's just nice to have, to be building these relationships and getting that traction and having agencies or other, whether it's law enforcement or like the Mobile County Commission or things like that, that trust us enough to work with us and collaborate with us, or to say, hey, you are getting a lot of attention on this and we think it would be beneficial for this case if you guys would share some information. That is a huge deal.
Yes.
Right. Yeah.
Because we have always said, I wish there was more we could do besides just, sharing something on Facebook. And it's like all of those things are coming together in a way that wasn't possible previously in Alabama because agencies were not as open to talking to outsiders. Right. And so it's nice to kind of see that shifting a little bit more in our favor because it is helping us get some information to families that they didn't have previously. It is helping us get information out so that other people can, if they have information or have heard about it or maybe didn't realize that it was still open or whatever, they are talking about it and they are sending messages and we are being able to get that in. And so, who knows where it ends up, but I think we're on a really good track and we're closer to being exactly where we wanted to be just within the less than a year. I think it's really kind of just skyrocketed within less than a year.
I'd say in like the last 6 months, really.
Yeah. And I feel like what you just said should also extend out to content creators, podcasters, anybody who's working on a case that is located in Alabama should really think about contacting Alabama Cold Case Advocacy to find out if there's any information that you have gathered, new information, updated information, so that they can provide that information in their podcast or in their content. Right. So I'm hoping that people will start seeing us as a resource.
Yeah, I would really love that. I mean, we don't have any, corner on the market as far as like this podcast goes, because really, honestly, it was a second thought. It wasn't really our primary goal to do this, but we want the accurate information out there. And so we're more than happy, because the more people that know, that the better that is for the cases and the victims and their families. So
yeah, because it's hard to battle misinformation. Once it's out there, it's kind of like out there, and then it's like, God dang it, you're still going to be fighting against it. That's not true,
Right.
And so
fire pops up somewhere with the wrong information or whatever.
Yes. And some of that's because things aren't updated regularly. So we try to like contact people, to talk to them and make sure that like, hey, is this the right number? Or like, who is the investigator? Can we have, even if they aren't willing to necessarily tell us anything about the case or be as open with us as some of the other agencies, I at least like to say, can you give me a contact for whoever is on this case, so that if we get something in? That's how I landed on Conecuh County. That was just, I was talking to Fulmerton and posted Britton's, and then we get a message that spurred a message about Tara's case. So I called Fulmerton and was like, hey, do you guys know who I would need to talk to over in Conecuh? And so they connected me with Chief Boykin, and he's wonderful. I mean, super responsive, very fast. And so he got me to who their investigator is. And so, it was just kind of like things lining up like they need to be, but it's putting out that effort to make sure we have a contact within these agencies to be able to send the information in, so it doesn't just sit there.
Right.
Or get lost.
Right. Yeah. One of the things I want to mention before we get off is that we always mention, one, Alabama has a huge cold case list. There's no getting around that. It's just huge. And not everybody is on it. And so we talk about that a lot too. But for all of you who have been contacting us, we thank you greatly for doing that. I hate it when I have to tell them that we have a huge case volume, and, we will, we do want to look into their case, and, but just to be patient with us, and they're having to be very patient because there's just so many, that have called in. We have a list you wouldn't believe of people that we need to get back to, and we've worked partly on it and haven't been able to get back to it, and some cases that I really, really, really want to pay attention to. So I want everybody out there to know that we're not ignoring them, even if you haven't heard from us. If you want to just, send us a message and say, hey, I'm just checking in. I know you're busy with the caseload, and now that we have Dana with us, hopefully it'll help a bit, but yeah.
Dun, dun, dun. How are you feeling, Dana?
Hi, Dana. Dana's got all the pressure now. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, I just wanted to make sure that that's heard, not just when we tell you and then we ignore you.
But it's not intentional.
No.
I mean, that case list has gotten so long because it kind of goes in phases where there won't be really a whole lot of growth. We'll get a name here or there. And then all of a sudden it's like, boom, here's a whole bunch of names.
Yeah. So, and it's not just like, some of them are just, submissions, and they'd want a graphic put up or something, which is great. And those are easier to get around, to not have, it doesn't take as long. But when you have 200 of them, then it becomes, different. But then, on top of that, you have all the ones that have actually wanted us to help look into things for them, or,
Yeah.
they want a word or, whatever it is that they're wanting, but they need a little more attention. And that's just, unfortunately.
Which we may be about to have another researcher. If I ever get her the stuff sent, she's more than happy to do that. She said she would be more than happy to help. I just hadn't had a chance to get her the list. Oh, the billboard's up in Pearson, because I don't remember if we talked about that. That did go up. And I just want to say thank you to Aaliyah's Craig Shook for doing the sketch.
Yeah.
The age progression sketch, because he did a phenomenal job.
Yeah.
And he actually has another one from us that's sitting in his queue. I really appreciate everybody that kind of came together to make that happen. It looks great. Mitch did a drive-by and sent us a photo because it went up while I was at work. And all of the local agencies that have really stayed on top of kind of sharing that and helping us keep that kind of circulating. They've been the county phenomenal. Yes, love Randall Dewitt. Super appreciate it because he used his discretionary funds to sponsor that.
Oh, I guess one last thing. So don't forget that we have our new line, our new phone line.
Oh, yes.
And so for any cases that you have a tip on or questions on that might help us with something, case submission, it's better to do those through the email. But we have our new line, and that's 251-501-COLD or 2653. And we're excited that that's there. That'll give.
And you can call or text that.
Yeah. You can text too.
Mm-hmm.
And we have a little bit of help in the background with a gentleman helping us with the calls too. So
Yep. So we get we got extensions 0 and 1 that ring to us, and then 3 is specifically for the Stephen Pearson case. Like we kind of have that dedicated just to kind of keep things. That's what's on the billboard because Sheriff Birch let us put our number on there too, which I thought was super nice of him. Just to make sure that nothing kind of fell through the cracks. So we have that 3rd extension set up dedicated to Steve. And I hope we get to do that with other cases too. Like I hope we can set up these extensions specifically for case related things, because I hope we have more billboards going up.
Yeah. All right. I think that's it.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks for staying up late, guys.
Sure.
All righty.
It was fun.
Since Alabama Cold Case Advocacy's creation, we have dedicated innumerable hours to researching and networking in an effort to provide the largest platform we can to the cases we share. We shoulder all associated expenses with Alabama Cold Case Advocacy out of our own pocket, including the subscription fees for researching and production of the Unforgotten podcast to provide a cost-free avenue for the victims' families of those cases.
We hope you will join in our efforts to raise awareness of Alabama's missing and murdered and support these families who have been forced to carry the immeasurable loss of their loved ones and the fight for answers. If you appreciate our mission and you are inspired to make a donation, your extra support will enable the ACCA to continue our research, share the cold cases, and help those families know that they are also unforgotten.
Unforgotten is an Alabama Cold Case Advocacy podcast, recorded in conjunction with Riverside FM, hosted and distributed by Red Circle to your favorite podcast platforms. Content, research, artwork, and production are by Sellers and Stormy of Alabama Cold Case Advocacy. Credits for music, sound clips, special mentions, and research sources can be found in each episode's description. Your support helps us continue producing Unforgotten and further Alabama Cold Case's mission of advocacy and awareness. There are a few ways you can help us light the path. Make a one-time or monthly donation to Unforgotten through Red Circle, sign up for a one-time or recurring donation through the ACCA website, or subscribe to the Unforgotten Patreon channel for early access to ad-free episodes. You will find the links for all 3 in our episode descriptions. Another cost-free way to be of great help is to follow us on social media, but most importantly, whatever you do, tell everyone you know about these cases. Sharing their stories is one of the most effective ways to help find resolution for Alabama's cold cases. Be the spark. Thank you for listening, and until next time, remember, justice may be delayed, but the victims and their families remain unforgotten.
good. You did good on that one.
Thanks.
Is she freezing or is it me?
Yeah, that was.
Oh.
It's sometimes if it gets really bad, we might have to go off video.
Yeah.
But is it fixed now?
I can
almost.
hear you fine, but I don't
Yeah.
see you fine.
The Alabama Board of Pardons and Paroles for records related to the person of interest. Do it. Damn it. I'm far from you today. If you want to come get me, we'll go check it out.
She's gone again.
Damn internet connection again. Podcast interview that we did with him.
No, you also
and talking
previous.
about the dogs.
What?
Dang it! Did it cut out again?
Yes, it did.
Damn it! I said that I could not think. Oh, hang on! I almost took myself out. I mean, took myself out of the office.
Okay. Like, what did you do? Like, bop yourself in the head?
Yeah, we've got a lot of agencies, right?
That came up, like, on the side yesterday. What? Did you do it again and I didn't hear? Okay.
I just stopped talking when it pops up. Now I'm like, fuck it.
Yeah. That's just less editing, right?
Yep. I'm like, I'm just not saying this shit again.
Yeah.
Previous Mobile Police Chief, like 2 chiefs ago, I think. Batiste. All right. Whenever you're listening to this, if there are random like motherfuckers like in there, just know that I was not actually talking about either one of you. Or like,
sure.
So, yeah, really. I've been sitting over here rolling my eyes all night, guys.
What did you guys think about Mary Faye's
we came here? God, son of a twit, man.
You were gone again.
Yeah.
We're going to start calling you Gone Girl.
I cuss every time it happens. I'm like, this is getting stupid.
You know what's really funny about it is I think sometimes it will actually still record on your end. So I will.
Oh my God. You're going to get.
Because I won't know. We'll be sitting here going, I didn't hear a word you said, but it'll actually. The records were if
like,
they
there's
felt
the,
like the case was
Paula Ellis and the Shanda Feller
or,
case.
You know, here she goes.
Hey.
I heard it that time. It echoed as she went out. She didn't even hear it this time.
No.
She didn't even know it this time.
Oh,
because
I'm sorry, I missed the end of that.
Oh, we just had somebody new join us. Bitch.
What did you say?
Son of a bitch.
No, before that.
I said, but I think my internet just got stronger. We've kind of built up enough traction where we're getting somewhere. Yep. And we may not be where we want to be. Fucking shit.
It's like you're silent.
That I say, even if I'm just like sitting there talking and I'm really not doing anything, it's a lot less pressure.
Oh, Miss Karen.
Boy, this one seems like a long one.
It is a long one.
I just kid. I'm like so excited when she comes back to hear what she's gonna say. Every time it's different.
Getting worse. So I don't know when it's gonna happen, and then everything just goes silent. But I think like, oh, they're so enthralled with what I'm saying.
I have no. I almost feel sorry for you, Mary, having to edit this.
I was.
Well, I'm sure there will be some like You'll know
Yeah.
because if it didn't record it, there's going to be some blank spots in mine. You'll be like, well, we can
Yeah.
just get rid of all that shit.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
Like, okay.
Can
well,
all go.
So much for that.
Yep.
I don't have kids here. Between the internet and the dog, I'm about to lose my mind.
6 months from now, you could be running a 5K, booking that dream trip, or seeing thicker, fuller hair every time you look in the mirror. Through Hers, you can get dermatologist-trusted, clinically proven prescriptions with ingredients that go beyond what over-the-counter products offer. Whether you prefer oral or topical treatments, Hers has you covered. Getting started is simple. Just fill out an intake form online, and a licensed provider will recommend a customized plan just for you. The best part? Everything is 100% online. If prescribed, your treatment ships right to your door. No pharmacy trips, no waiting rooms, and no insurance headaches. Plus, treatments start at just $35 a month. Start your initial free online visit today at forhers.com/talk. That's forhers.com/talk. Compounded products are not FDA approved or verified for safety, effectiveness, or quality. Prescription required. Price varies based on product and subscription plan. See website for full details, restrictions, and important safety information.